welcome to the analysis. My name is Monica Chanda, and on the program we will be looking at the impact of the monetary policy statement that was presented by the Reserve Bank Governor of Zimbabwe, Dr. John Mangudya, on Wednesday the 20th of February 2019. We will be looking at some of those key highlights as well as the impact thus far. To help us discuss these and other matters, we have invited to the studio Mr. Tendai Chinamasa, who will be helping us discuss these issues. Welcome to the analysis.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Let's start by the highlights, in your view, some of those key highlights from the presentation of that monetary policy statement.
Starting point is the intermarket bank. That was the main role of the policy, is to formalize the exchange of the US and the RTGS money in simple terms.
Mm-hmm. But in your view as an economist, before we actually get to explain those highlights and indulge the viewers on those key issues that were presented, what would you say were the positives in your view?
Okay, positives are there's now in exchange rate between the RTGS dollar and the US dollar. Because before then, for example, investors were getting confused about the amount of currency in the country. Mm-hmm. When they came in trying to invest, they couldn't tell whether they were using the US dollar, the bond not, swipe, RTGS. It was all confusing.
That's true.
But the positive is there's now a rate for the RTGS dollar and the US dollar. They're now separated. There's a rate at 2.5. Is a starting point. It's not a fixed rate. It's variable, only willing buyer, willing seller. So I think that's a positive step.
Okay.
Yes.
And to, like you said, you want to simplify some of that technical jargon to make it easy for the ordinary person on the street. Looking at what you just mentioned, the intermarket bank in itself, and looking at these rates, banks last Friday started trading, if I can put it that way, at 2.5. That was the starting rate on a willing buyer, willing seller basis. Now, what exactly does that mean?
What it means is if anyone has got money, US dollar, and they want to change it into RTGS dollar, when they go to the bank, the intermarket bank, you negotiate the rate. I know it's 2.5 starting rate, but you can ask for more money. You can ask for 3 or for 3.5, depending on the willingness of someone to sell with a certain rate. So it's a variable rate.
But then this willingness, in as much as it's that willing buyer, willing seller, at this point in time, have you been on the ground to actually assess how this is actually transacting, to see how this is operational in the banks?
I did, yeah. I'll give you an example of a company that went in the bank. They're trying to change, I think it was 2.5 million US dollars. And they managed to get 3.2 of RTGS dollars. Through negotiating, but that has to be approved by the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank are monitoring all these transactions. I think every 2 hours, all banks have to report the Reserve Bank.
Okay, so every 2 hours. Today is we're just a couple of days since the beginning of trading, which was last Friday. Is the rate still stagnant? Is it changing? Is it fluctuating? What's the situation on the ground?
Well, it depends what you mean on the ground. In the bank or
in the
power market?
In the bank. The parallel market is obviously illegal.
It is illegal. So what the banks are doing, they're competing with the parallel market. I mean, there's no running away from that. But there's been a slight fluctuation so far between 2.5 and 3.
2.5 and 3.
Yes.
Is that sustainable though? If we ought to ask, is it sustainable? Will it also address some of those domestic issues to do with competitiveness, productivity?
It will stabilize once the power market is going out of the picture, because everyone will go in the bank, and the bank are the only institution that can drive prices either up or down. So once we get rid of the power market, then yes, we'll start to see a change in price going down in the shops.
Because
Yes.
right now you're speaking of those prices going down, but
Yes.
there seems to still be some of those price distortions. They seem to be persisting at this point.
Yeah.
Could we likely see any stabilization in your view?
The prices are being distorted because the black market still exists, and people are taking advantage of the black market. Because the black market, as you say, is illegal. People can just charge whatever they want.
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Maybe we'll ask you to hold on to that thought. We'll
Okay.
take a short commercial break,
Okay.
and then we'll come back to just touch on that issue.
Okay.
But this is the program, The Analysis, and we still have in studio Mr. Chinamasa. He is an economic analyst, and we are trying to just unpack some of these issues around the monetary policy statement and try and make them a little more easier for the ordinary person to understand. A lot of technical jargon they say out there. So we'll be right back with more. Welcome back. This is The Analysis, and we have in studio an economic analyst, Mr. Chinamasa. We're looking at some of those highlights from the monetary policy statement presented by the Reserve Bank Governor, Dr. John Mangudka, and just trying to unravel some of those issues, saying some of it can be a bit technical for the ordinary person to understand. So we're trying to get a bit of an understanding and make it a little more in layman terms, for lack of a better word. So, Mr. Chinamasa, we're still talking about the issue of stabilization and the issue of price distortions that seem to still persist. And the question still holds, are we likely to see any stabilization in light of this?
We will, yeah, once the black market is gone. At the moment, I was going to give an example before we took a short break. A loaf of bread, for example, is ranging between 180 and 250. And there's no justification for that range. So the loaf of bread, 150. That's in Harare. I'm not even talking of going outside Harare. So how can you justify shops that are 50 meters away selling bread at that difference? Just the extortion. It's being driven by the black market rate or black market activity. But once the banks take over the pricing, the exchange of money, then they can actually drive the economy in prices.
But is it fair to continue to try and base all these matters on the so-called black market? Some of these price distortions and disruptions when it comes to these goods and services?
Yes, because I'm a businessman. I'm selling something, and I have to learn on the black market to raise forex to import something. Because it's illegal, you can't really ask me, well, what my overheads are, what my expenses are. So if I charge a higher rate or a price higher than the average, then people can't really question me why I'm charging those prices. Because the black market, because the black market plays a part in it, in the formal channels.
But
Yes.
how do you suggest we get rid of the black market? Is it possible to wipe the black market out?
It is, if there is financial discipline within the banks, within businesses. If the banks give a fair rate, of RTGS against the US dollar.
Which is what? What would be a fair rate?
Right. A fair rate is when the banks take over the market and drive prices down and make sure that there's fairness within the economy, where they give loans at a cheaper rate for new players on the market, where they bail out companies that are struggling at cheaper rates, because with that benefit passed over to the consumers.
You are speaking of a bailout to the bank, to businesses.
Just one element of it, yeah.
But this bailout, you're saying if banks come in and bail out, or are you saying if government comes in and bails out? What are you saying here?
The banks, their job is to manage money in the economy. Government are there to implement policy and make sure that the country functions. We are talking about the economy. And the banks have to play their part.
Are they playing their part at this point? Because obviously, if we are to look at the system, the banking system, and government at this point is trying to implement certain policies, certain measures. We do have the TSP, the Transitional Stabilization Program, which was which was actually introduced by the Minister of Finance and Economic Development. So, who could be the problem here? Where's the challenge? Saying that you're saying there should be that financial management, there should be that financial discipline. So who is to blame at this point, especially if you are saying there should be some bailout of sorts? Because banks at the same time are saying they've been having challenges, and some of them were probably threatened. They were threatening to probably liquidate because they couldn't sustain.
Okay, that's a very good question. The banks, they need what's called an ombudsman. I don't know if you know of FCA, the Financial Activity Authority. So they're responsible for policing the transacting of money, protecting customers, guiding businesses, and to make sure that all illegal activities are monitored and put under control. Always to get leakages in the system. So, I mean, that's my suggestion. They need an ombudsman, banking ombudsman, who actually police the economy. Because I don't think we have that in Zimbabwe with respect. That's why there's blame shifting from from government to banking to other people. People don't want to take the responsibility. So let's come up with a body that takes responsibility for those issues.
And this body, is this supposed to be a body that that ombudsman for the banking system? Is this what we're saying for the banking sector?
No, this is just for the banking sector. It's for the country. They make sure that the economy is functioning well. Where there are challenges, it's their job to expose those challenges and come up with suggestions and hopefully solve them and move forward in this country. Yes.
Another challenge posed is the scare of inflation rates. There is that concern that are these measures good enough to stay in place to ensure that we contain any spiraling inflation rates of any sort?
Well, that goes back again to what I was saying. Inflation, banks play a part in inflation.
Okay, Mr. Chinamasa, yes. Let's just hold that. We'll be back with the inflation issue, but we will take a commercial break, and this is the analysis. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is the analysis, and we are looking at the monetary policy statement. With me is Mr. Tendai Chinamasa, who just before the break we were looking at these measures that have been put in place from that monetary policy statement. And we are asking, are these enough to contain the effects, or a spiraling inflation rate. And just before the break, where I cut you, you were about to say something, Mr. Chinamasa.
Yes, I was going to say, well, the banks are responsible for inflation rates. But for them to carry out that responsibility effectively, we have to get rid of the power market or the black market. Because the black market will keep on interfering with the banking program, with the banking policy, and also the banking and driven systems. Because the black market will keep creating leakages where possible. So with this new monetary policy, having the interbank, if they can manage to eradicate the black market, then you can see interest rates going down, prices going down, and the layman on the street will actually see the benefits once the black market is gone. Yes.
Seeing you keep bringing the issue of the black market,
Yes.
let me bring to your attention the Money Laundering and Proceeds of Crime Act. Now, I think that is a very, very crucial matter. In your view, has the central bank actually done enough to enforce the principles of that act?
Okay, the Money Laundering Act and Process of Crime. If you go back in the monetary policy, they talk about introduction of periodic changes, where you can actually go to a periodic change. And the periodic change, okay, in layman terms, when the periodic change is open, under the Reserve Bank, being monitored, every activity will be monitored. So the periodic change can take as much forex, no limit. But when they are giving money out, when they are selling forex, they can only sell in small bits. Maybe to pay your TV subscription, medication, or to go on holiday. And in allocation that's sold to the public, up to 10,000 per day, aggregate. So they can't sell more than 10,000. So that will control the money laundering problem. And also, if someone gets money from a periodic change, let's say they get their limit is 500. You can't go from one periodic change to the other because there will be mechanisms in place. They might even stamp your passport to say, well, you've taken your limit for the next 6 months or 1 year, whatever.
So these measures and this monitoring,
Yes.
what would you say would be the most effective way to ensure that they do have those correct and effective monitoring measures in place to see to it that whoever is trying to get access to that foreign currency is not then putting that same money back into the black market?
Well, forex is sold for people who want to use money outside Zimbabwe. That is a condition. You can't get money to use in the country. It's money to use outside the country. So for example, if you're going on holiday, if you have your tickets bought, you have to prove that you're traveling. The passport, you've got your visas, wherever you're going. And once you get the money, you also make sure that you've actually traveled. For some people, you can just buy tickets, get money and stay in the country. So if you don't travel, then they'll ask for the money back.
But I also, I'm made to understand there's also some concerns from the public. What does the law say in terms of, at this point, because we've had the introduction of the RTGS dollar and with the monetary policy statement in place, does this mean transacting in the US dollar, does that still remain in place? Is the multi-currency system still a measure of currency?
It is, yes. In layman's terms again, you've got two accounts, RTGS dollars and US dollar. It's 1-to-1. The reason being, the Reserve Bank, they don't want to put a rate on the RTGS. It's up to the market to determine the rate.
So what?
Are you with me?
Okay, so what happens? I want to bring you to
Yes.
the matter of diaspora remittances. We do have those, not bureau de charge, but then we have people who actually receive funds from outside the country. And there have been complaints from others who are saying when we try and go and receive the same funds, we're not getting the requisite funds in US dollars as sent by our family or friends or from wherever they're coming, or wherever this money is coming from. They're actually being paid in bonds. Now, what does the country say in light of that?
I'm not sure. Was my belief is depending on the platform the money will be sent with. Was the money sent through, for example, Western Union or World Remit or Mukuru.com or other similar institutions?
Like those institutions, yes.
Money comes
when it comes through
it comes as US dollars.
But there are some who are saying they're receiving it in bonds.
Yeah, but it depends. Is the money being transferred into one's account? If it's an account, which account? The Nostro account, which is the US dollar, or the RTGS account? Both have to be clear. Because if the money is going to RTGS dollars, then it goes in at the rate, at that day's rate.
But then this is not coming through the banking facility. This is coming through those same institutions.
No, but what I'm saying is, if the money is it depends. If the money is being transferred, is being sent to someone's account, into an RTGS account, it will go in at that day's rate. Are you with me?
I understand that part.
If it's going into a Nostro account, it goes in its US dollars.
Okay,
Right.
I think we will have to have this conversation again. I see my producers are telling me that the time factor is not on our side, but it looks like there's still so much more to analyze in light of these matters. It's still early days. For others, they may say it's still early days to really factor in whether there's much movement, to say the least, in terms of these the monetary policy statement. But Mr. Tendai Chinamasa, I'd like to say thank you for joining us on the analysis.
Thank you. It's been nice having you, and find more time, we'll talk more about it.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
indeed.
Okay, thank you.
And to our viewers at home, we will continue to engage you in more analysis around the monetary policy statement. It is, of course, our mandate to ensure that we try and, simplify some of these matters so that the ordinary person can have a better understanding of how they're transacting and how some of these measures operate. After all, there's probably someone's grandmother out there who's wondering, what exactly are we saying here? When there is a willing buyer, willing seller position, what do we mean here? And of course, the intermarket bank, which was introduced. So we will be giving you more analysis around this. Until next time, my name is Monica Chanda, and the crew behind the scene. This is ZTV. It's pleasant viewing.